So we had a couple different ways we could kick this off, but I think the best way is to hit Tony with the prompt of tell me about the Bernie the Dolphin story.
Yeah, because we were trying to talk about, well, how do you get started kind of talking about film finance and everything else, and obviously we'll take questions from the audience, and I imagine a lot of people are kind of just getting started, and you know, if we start throwing out terms like MG, and you start throwing out all the initials and be like, wait, what's MG? It's a minimum guarantee, but what's a minimum guarantee and all that, and so maybe this story will help a little bit. It's a little bit of a traditional way of getting a film made, but at the same time kind of untraditional. So I was at the Cannes Film Festival in 2017. I have a friend who's a producer and a sales agent, and he had just sold a film to Lionsgate called Army Dog. And so it was, you know, one of these smaller budget, family-friendly kids and a dog kind of a thing. And there's a division of Lionsgate called Grindstone. So Grindstone will pick up these films, and then they'll put them out through Lionsgate. And after Marty sold the film to them, they were like, "This is great. You know, what else do you have? We're looking for a family-friendly marine mammal, kids in a marine mammal movie." And he's like,
they phrased it exactly that way?
Yeah, marine mammal. We want a family-friendly kids in a marine mammal movie. And it's just a little bit way to illustrate of what does the marketplace want. Like, there's films that we want to make, there's films that you want to make, but what is the marketplace at this point in time? The marketplace apparently wanted a kid-friendly marine mammal movie. So Marty's like, I don't have anything, but I got a guy. And I was St. Pete Clearwater Film Commissioner at the time, which, if you don't know, is Gulf Coast of Florida, beautiful beaches, and dolphins, and et cetera, in the area. So Marty calls me up, comes over to my pavilion, we sit down, and we come up with a treatment on my phone about a sunburned dolphin that's rescued by a kid who has a burgeoning YouTube channel. And so he goes back and he pitches this the next day to Grindstone, and they're like, great, get us a script. And so then we come up with a more detailed treatment, and there's a teacher that we know in Florida who also happens to be a writer. She's off for the summer, and I say, hey, Terry, will you write a script for us? We're going to give you a detailed outline. I want you to send us every 10 pages to make sure it's on pace for what we want. We're not going to pay you for it unless the movie gets made. If the movie gets made, then we're going to pay you X amount of dollars. And she said, okay. So we started this process. In a month, had our first draft of the script. Marty takes it, does a second pass on it. So within 2 months, so this was May when we had the meeting. This would be July, we've got the script, Marty takes it to Grindstone, they're like, great, here's a minimum guarantee, go make the movie. And what a minimum guarantee means is, here's X amount of dollars that we're gonna give you to go make this film, or what we're actually gonna pay you once the film is done and you deliver it.
I feel like that's the more common story, is they say minimum guarantee, and everybody's hoping they're going to get all their money up front.
Right.
And rarely does it happen.
Yeah, so they're not actually giving us a check. They're just giving us an IOU that says, we'll pay you later if you make this movie. And this is for domestic distribution in North America and the US. So Marty has another friend who has a bigger sales company, happens to be talking to her, and she says, what are you working on? He's like, oh, I just got this MG to make this dolphin film in Florida with Tony for domestic. And she's like, oh, what's it about? Well, just so happens she has a 10-year-old daughter who wants to be an actress, and just so happens that we'd written into the script a younger sister for the guy that's starting a YouTube channel. And so then she gives us a MG for worldwide. And so I'll give you the numbers because it's been a while, not that big a deal. So Grindstone said, we're going to give you $250,000, and then this other company said, we'll give you $500,000 for the whole world to make this movie. So a couple of years prior, I was in Cannes. You're going to see a theme running through here. And I was at dinner, and I met these guys from New Orleans who happened to finance tax credits because they're from New Orleans. They had other businesses, and I stayed in touch with them. And I basically called them up and said, hey, I've got a minimum guarantee for a film for $500,000. We're going to make it for $400,000. Why don't you give me $200,000? And so they're like, okay, that sounds like a good deal. So they gave me $200,000. Called up another friend of mine who was just starting to get into film and said the same thing and said, why don't you give me $200,000 because we're going to make the movie for $400, but we're going to get paid $500, so you're going to get your money back plus your 20% on top. He's like, that sounds like a good deal. So we got $400,000. We had cameras rolling 7 months after the initial meeting in Cannes, had all the money in place, made the movie, and then in the process of while we were editing it, Grindstone liked it so much they asked us for a sequel. And so we just basically did the whole thing over again. And then as the first film was coming out in December of 2018, we did a premiere for that film because we had all the cast in town because we were shooting the second one at the same time.
How convenient.
Yeah, how convenient. And so it's a very uncommon kind of thing, but it's a way that it wouldn't happen if I wasn't in Cannes. It wouldn't happen if I hadn't had Marty at my film festival years earlier and became friends with him. Wouldn't happen if I hadn't been in Cannes and met the guys from New Orleans and then stayed in touch with them and became friends with them. You have all these little pieces that you put into place just to kind of circle around to eventually, years down the road, kind of put it all together and then make two.
And that's how you have an overnight success, right?
Right, yeah. And then that's, 20 years of relationships building up to something where you kind of put all that together, basically.
I would also add, I mean, it's rare that you got an MG based on like something conceptual, like a marine mammal.
It's because they wanted that. They asked for it.
I totally get it. And to kind of drill into the MG conversation, since I think that's what we're here for, our company, Bondit, parent company of Buffalo 8, we are basically a bank for transactions just like that. So you could have, in that scenario, he can call us and we have a credit facility and we do these kinds of loans against minimum guarantees, distribution guarantees, international pre-sales, and tax credits. And we can bundle them. So that's how, like, if you see a movie, commonly movies are put together that have big movie stars, like we'll use the Anna Kendrick movie that we did, Woman of the Hour, as an example. That's a roughly an $8 million movie, and about $4 million of that is, private equity that the production company puts in, and then another $4 million is a mixture of pre-sales where you're selling the rights, as we were just talking about, to different territories worldwide or domestic, and you go territory by territory and say, how much will you give me for this Anna Kendrick movie about a serial killer? And just collect all those deals and add that up to another, say, $2 million, and then you've got your tax credit worth another $2 million. And so those are what's like what our company will lend against, because it is a guarantee. But the thing that I wanted to mention is, like, those are very, very hard to come by. They are usually tied to having an extremely famous actor involved in your project.
There's a caveat to that. It was more than just that. Then Grindstone was also, there had to be a name actor that went along with it. And
who'd you get?
We threw a lot of names out there, and they only had one response: get Kevin Sorbo. That's what they wanted. This was 2017, and they said, get Kevin Sorbo. So, like, all right, I guess we're going to go find Kevin Sorbo, see if he'll do a dolphin movie. And he did two of them.
Amazing.
That's great. Well, and I do think that this is actually kind of a common story for a lot of working producers these days, where, like, either they got started in that or they've been doing that for a while. But that all kick-started with, you had a first one, or was it your friend that had the first one with Grindstone that...
Yeah, he had already sold one to Grindstone, and they asked him for another film. Right.
So you get one completed, and then you go back to the well, right? So that we did a similar thing with Sci-Fi and Lifetime and Hallmark, but, like, this applies to a bunch of different studios. And, like, even at the bigger studio level, you see this happen where it's almost like a permalancer type thing, where you'll see that these producers work with the same studio over and over again, and even though they're not necessarily an employee of the studio, it's because they did one good one, and then they're able to parlay it into the next one, and then at a certain point you stick with them, or sometimes you can parlay that into another studio.